Madam Chair, leadership is the most important element of any organization, be it a public or private organization, a business, a school, a military unit, an athletic team. Leadership is the key in everything. The Department of Homeland Security, which protects us from all kinds of attacks, foreign and domestic, man-made and natural, needs leadership. They need confirmed Senate leadership. They haven't had it for months. I want to thank my colleagues who voted here this week for voting to confirm Jay Johnson's nomination as the Secretary of this department. He'll be sworn in next week, thank God. He needs a team. And at the top of that team, he needs Alejandro Mayorkas to be the Deputy Secretary. Those aren't just my words, those just aren't the words of Senator Landrieu or Senator Leahy or Senator Feinstein. We've received dozens of letters from people who know him, we know these names, we know their names, we know their faces, we know their reputations. Some are Democrat, some are Republican. A number of them have helped lead the Department of Homeland Security. Lead it. Jane Hall-Luke, the last Deputy Secretary of the Department who stepped down 8 months ago. This is a vacancy we're trying to fill. She literally oversaw his work, and it was, she was his boss, if you will. She thinks the world of him, not just in the role that he served, but as a guy who can step in and fill the shoes that she used to fill. I want to talk about this investigation. There's two tracks we're going down here. One is an investigation that was launched in September of 2012 by the OIG for the Department of Homeland Security. 2012, 15 months ago. How do we find out about it? We found out about it through a leak. Information leaked by the office to our friends on the other side, 3 days before the hearing was supposed to occur. We asked to talk to folks who came forward as whistleblowers to talk to the minority. We've asked and asked and asked. Never been given the chance to talk to them, find out what are their allegations, what is their story. Let's hear it. And by the same token, they have refused to turn to the one person who knows the most about what has gone on in this agency for the last 4 years, Alejandro Mayorkas, to say, well, you've been accused of this. Under our system of justice in this country, the accused actually has a chance to defend himself. And when he did, we had a hearing, they didn't show up. They didn't show up. And they won't meet with him either. So here's the situation. We've got people who they may be very good people. I don't know. We don't know them. We don't know their names. We don't know what they're saying. We just know that we haven't had a chance to meet with them. And we know that the one guy who's being accused here hasn't had a chance to give his side of the story to those who are accusing him. Is that fair? I don't think so. I don't think so. Well, we had that hearing at the end of July. No Republicans came. Mr. Mayorkas, we put every tough question to him that we could under oath, and he came through. He said, on this case involving Terry McAuliffe, Mr. McAuliffe and his company wanted something, they didn't get it. And the guy who really made the decision, who works for Alejandro Mayorkas, basically said, Vernon Rule, he made the decision. He made the decision. He was not pressured to make the decision. He ruled against Terry McAuliffe's company. End of case. Here we are at the end of July. We have the hearing, the Republicans don't come. Dr. Coburn joined me in a letter to the Inspector General and said, please provide the resources to expedite and make a priority of this investigation. And we're 9 months into the investigation at that time. That was the end of July. In August, we reached out and said, through staff, said, what kind of assets or kind of priority are you giving this case? They had 3 people working on it. They have 650 employees in this office, 650. They had 3 full-time people working on it. An investigator, 2 research assistants. So we go in August and they say, well, we'll need a couple more months. Well, a couple more months was October. Dr. Carper and I sent another letter to the Inspector General and said, how are we doing? Let's provide some priority to this and let's get to the bottom of this. That was in October. 2 weeks ago, minority staff, majority staff from the committee had a phone conversation with the OIG's office and said, how are we doing? And they said, well, there's no evidence of any criminal wrongdoing by anybody. Not by Mr. Mayorkas, not by anybody at DHS. But we're not done yet. We need several more months. Maybe come back in February or March. In the meantime, the Department of Homeland Security doesn't have the leadership that it needs, at least confirmed by us. How long are we going to wait? The terrorists aren't going to wait. The ones in foreign countries aren't going to wait. The ones in this country aren't going to wait. We need leadership. It's the key for everything. Everything. Madam Chairman, let me mention there's another audit that's been going on as well. by the IG, same IG, of the EB-5 program. I'm an old governor. I'm an old state treasurer. We used to get audits all the time in state government. The auditor came in to do audits. Drive me crazy when the auditor would come in and make an audit for some time in the past, refuse to acknowledge that the department of the agency being audited had actually fixed those problems, and submit an audit that pretends like nothing's different. You've seen this. Senator Urban's seen this. I've seen this. Drove me crazy. Well, we got an audit that's going to be released, I think, publicly in a day or two. It's been shared with us in the Senate this week. And there are really four recommendations. Four recommendations. As it turns out, of those four recommendations, one of them needs the Congress to do something. We need to pass a law. Alejandro Mayorkas, 18 months ago, said to the Judiciary Committee, Senator Leahy, Senator Grassley, in order for us to make sure there's not fraud in the EB-5 program, to make sure there's not national security concerns, we need you, Congress, to do something about it. Well, when they reauthorized the EB-5 program in 2012, guess what? They didn't take his recommendations, none of them. This year, we're doing immigration reform in committee. Senator Durham is one of the key players there. When we did it, Pat Leahy, chairman of the committee, made sure that those recommendations were actually included in the immigration reform law. The recommendations for Alejandro Mayorkas. And they're in the immigration reform bill. We voted for it. It's over in the House now. It's sitting there, gathering dust, unfortunately. If Senator Leahy doesn't introduce as a standalone bill those provisions, fixing, allowing the EB-5 program to have the kind of governance that it needs through the USCIS agency, if he doesn't do it, I said to him, I'll introduce the legislation myself. I hope we'll have a lot of co-sponsors. There are four recommendations. One of them needs us to do something in order for it to be to occur. The other two are either completed, acknowledged, completed, done. The other one, just a disagreement. It is outside the scope of the law. That's the audit. That's the audit. So, my friends, I just want to say this. This is not a criminal investigation. The things that Terry McAuliffe and his company sought were denied. The one person within the agency that's actually worked on these investigations and worked on these programs, these EB-5 programs, has come forward and said, look, Mayorkas did nothing wrong. I decided against Mr. McAuliffe's company, and Mr. Mayorkas stayed out of my way. We have endorsements. We don't know who the folks that are detractors of Mr. Mayorkas. I wish we did, and I wish we had a chance to talk to them. We're never going to have a chance. I wish that our friends on the other side had taken the time to talk to Mr. Mayorkas, to say, listen, this is what you're accused of. The Democrats don't know what you're accused of, but this is what we've been told by these 6 people. And what's your story? What's your story? Whatever happened to the golden rule? What happened to the idea that justice delayed is justice denied? You know, the Mayorkas family, Senator Landry said, well, he's got a wife. They got 2 kids. They have a life to live. We put them through hell for months. What kind of message does this send to other people, other agency leaders who go in, take an agency to trouble that has problems, needs to be fixed, needs to be shaken up, and that person goes in and does it and gets whistleblowers or complaints out of the as a result? What do we say to other leaders who go into agencies that are in trouble, need to be shaken up, willing to, get people to do things differently? What do we say to them? Don't do it. Don't rock the boat. Just let things slide. Is that the message we want to send? I don't think so. Well, we'll not have a chance on this side to hear from those 6 people, but I tell you, the other people who work in that agency had a chance to say something about the way they feel about how their agency's going. Earlier this week, as my colleagues know, every year we get a report from a nonprofit organization that looks at 300 federal agencies and asks the question, how's your morale? How do you feel about your work that you're doing? And they ask 300, one of those 300 is this agency led by Alejandro Mayorkas, the Citizenship and Immigration Services. The Department of Homeland Security, again this year, we just got the results this week, again this year, worst morale in federal government of any department in our government, worst morale. But guess what? There's one agency in this department that stood up stood out. Because out of those 300 agencies, number 76, the top 25%, number 76 was this agency led by Mr. Mayorkas. And another question was asked of the employees, do you feel better or worse about your senior leadership this year than last year? Since 2009, since he took over this organization, since 2009, Madam President, well, guess what? Over 20% of them say they feel better. They feel better about your senior leadership of Mr. Mayorkas than they did without his leadership. Something's going on in that agency, folks. We're not getting the full story, but that survey that we got this week says a lot. Please.
Through the chair, I'd like to ask a question to the senator from Delaware because he's touched on an issue which is important to everyone, but especially to this senator from Illinois. It was 12 years ago when I introduced the DREAM Act, and it was a little over a year ago when the president issued an executive order which said that they would defer the deportation of those eligible under the DREAM Act. But there was also a little wrinkle to it. They said the fees that we were going to collect under this DACA, they called it, this executive order, had to pay for the administration of this executive order. This is extraordinary. We were basically saying this was a pay-as-you-go effort that has drawn more than 600,000 applications and over 450,000 approvals, and this went right through Mr. Mayorkas' responsibility and jurisdiction. So I would say to the senator from Delaware, not only is the morale good in his agency, but the job they've done is extraordinary. They were given an extraordinary responsibility, and they rose to the challenge and handled it professionally. And I can tell you firsthand knowledge, having met with him, watched him, this man is a capable administrator, and the people who work for him, clearly as a result of this survey, are very happy with his performance. I would just add to the senator from Delaware, what absolutely confuses, mystifies, infuriates me is the notion that people, unidentified people, will make non-specific charges against this man, and he is supposed to wait for month after weary month. If we talk about the basic standard of justice in America, when the government makes a charge against someone, there's a complaint, a bill of particulars. You know what the charge is. And fairness and justice require that you can confront your accusers and hear from them the information and evidence against them. In this situation, as best I can understand, and what you've said repeatedly on the floor, I say to the chairman, is that that never took place. You've waited month after weary month for these accusers to come forward and at least tell Mr. Mayorkas what they think he has done wrong. Their silence, their refusal to do so speaks volumes to me. And I'm sorry that they didn't make their report more fully, but I think, as I said the other night on the floor, you're an honorable person. I know you. I've worked with you for over 30 years in the House and in the Senate. And when I hear you stand on the floor, you do your best to be fair and bipartisan in everything. When I hear you stand on the floor and say, this man has been treated unfairly, he deserves his chance, that's what I need to hear. And I would just say to the senator from Delaware, has he had a chance to confront his accusers? Has your committee had a chance to even know the allegations against him at this point?
The answer, Madam President, the answer sadly is no, we have not. No, we have not. Madam President, how much time do we have remaining?
The senator has 1.5 minutes remaining.
Madam President, my friend Senator Durbin from Springfield, Illinois, land of Lincoln. I'm reminded as I close here this morning about something that Lincoln once said. He was meeting with his cabinet during the Civil War, during the heart of the Civil War. Things had started to turn for the Union for the better. The Union leader on the military side was a guy named Grant. And he allegedly liked to drink a lot. And some of the folks on the president's cabinet didn't like him. They said, Mr. President, we need to get rid of Grant. He's not the kind of guy we want to have leading our forces. And Grant had led a reversal of fortune so that the Union, having on the losing side, ended up on the winning side again and again and again. Lincoln looked at his cabinet and he said these words, and I paraphrase him. He said, "Find out what Grant is drinking, give it to the rest of my generals." Well, rather than criticize or hang out to dry a leader of an agency who's turned it around, who enjoys the support, broad support of the folks within his agency, rather than criticize him and finding fault and leaving him out there unable to defend himself against unknown accusations, we should find out, in the words of Lincoln, find out what Grant is drinking, and in this case, find out what Mayorkas is doing, what has he done to turn around an agency and make sure the other people that come into positions of authority
Senator, all
are taking
post-closure
of the
time has
same
expired.
beverage. With that, I yield the floor. Yield back my time.